If you just stick to one thing, you'll go through enough trial and error, and you'll go through enough iteration and enough innovation to the point where you'll figure out the answers and you will kind of get your competitive advantage. And that's where you rise above saturation and become part of the 1%. If you can combine two trends, you are going to be in a great place to grow a business.
First question is, what does your boyfriend do? And are you both entrepreneurs?
Well, we're both entrepreneurs, for sure. I run a Twitter marketing agency, and they know what you do. But we've made it work for 2 years. We both started doing completely different things. So when we rekindled in 2020, you could hear the story in the first episode, but I was starting Crow Drone, a drone photography business, got my drone pilot's license and everything, crashed and burned. And you were doing e-commerce. Yeah. So completely different things back then, but we kind of went through the trials and tribulations together. So, and I started my business only a year ago, and you've kind of been on the same business for about 2 years, 2.5. So
thinking back to that, e-commerce, like you had done some e-commerce in the past, so you were helping me out with that a little bit too, right?
I've done a lot of businesses, but yeah, so I started online business when I was 19, and I started day trading, and then once everyone who's probably watching has done this, but you go down the rabbit hole and you Google all the different online businesses. But one of those was drop shipping, like Shopify drop shipping. I tried that. I've tried Amazon drop shipping, tried Amazon FBA, tried Facebook drop shipping. I've done them all, some successful, some not so successful. But yeah, one of the many, many, many failures that I've tried over the past 6-7 years.
How has the market changed from how to make money online businesses then versus now?
I think saturated is not the correct word. I think there's just more competition. I don't think anything's ever really saturated. Like a lot of times people get discouraged and they blame saturation, but in reality, it's just a competitive market and you have to find something different. So like even e-commerce, right? Like we both know people who are doing e-commerce successfully today, but the landscape has changed so much. They require different things. Maybe they require more capital, more expertise, etc. So even with for my marketing agency, right, I've actually had 3 marketing agencies. So I had an Amazon PPC agency, which is pay-per-click ads, and it was called Atriclus. And I also had an IT content marketing agency, which I don't even think I got as far as getting a name. And both failed, but both could have succeeded if I just stuck to them. Because in reality, if you just stick to one thing, you'll go through enough trial and error, and you'll go through enough iteration and enough innovation to the point where you'll figure out the answers and you will kind of get your competitive advantage. And that's where you rise above saturation and become part of the 1%.
You answered my next question, which was going to be, what is the biggest learning lesson from trying so many businesses? Because I feel like in my experience, even though I've stuck with growing a business out of my personal brand, you've helped me a lot because you've seen a lot of up and downs from starting with Forex trading and every how to make money online under the sun to where you are now having a stable agency that's growing month after month.
What was the original question?
Biggest learning lesson.
Oh yeah. No, the biggest learning, I said this on the other podcast I was just on, which is stick to one thing. It's so hard. It's so easy to jump from thing to thing and you get discouraged because it doesn't work right away. But the reality is if you just stick to one thing, you'll probably succeed, even if the opportunity vehicle isn't as great as maybe the next one. So like we all get shiny object syndrome. We jump from thing to thing. And I told you about that tweet I saw today by Jeremy Haynes, who's another big marketer. And it was sometimes the opportunity vehicle, you could get a shiny object syndrome for another opportunity, and it might be a better opportunity, but the compound interest of sticking to one thing would be far greater than jumping to a slightly better opportunity. So it's really just sticking to one thing. And I think you did that well over the past 2 or so years, which is why you've succeeded. It's because you've stuck to it for so long, posting 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times a day for literally like 800 days in a row. So it's crazy. Like most 99.99% of people wouldn't do that. So sticking to one thing is the advice.
And what would you recommend to somebody who has shiny object syndrome? Because you've really helped me with that, even though you've bounced around a lot. And I think you helping me stay focused on what's really important has supported me in more ways than you know. So what would you say to someone listening who understands, yeah, I have shiny object syndrome, but now what?
I think we're all different speed. Like we have a different speed of learning. I'm a very slow learner. So it took me half a decade, right, to figure it out. But I just had to figure it out on my own. Some people learn from experience and some people can just be told and they can apply it right away. So for me, I had to learn it by falling on my face. Whereas maybe like you could just take the word and apply it. So everybody's a little bit different, number one. Number two, I think like a more practical advice is to pick something that you are already doing and something that you enjoy. So for me, right, and you know this when you first met me, I already spent 8 hours a day on Twitter nonstop. You used to get mad at me for being on Twitter
Remember when you
too
deleted
much.
Twitter?
I literally had to delete Twitter to try and save my relationship. It was never that serious, but I really did want to change and I wanted to like get off social media and not be so addicted to it. And I quickly realized that if my strength is being able to use Twitter and understand the platform and understand the culture, to flip that into a business. So I have a marketing degree. I had already 2 other tries at marketing agencies, and I knew the ins and outs of Twitter. So, and then when Elon Musk bought it, all of the stones kind of fell into place. So that's how I turned my my weakness into a strength and started a business out of it. So I think picking something that you already do could be the way. I think you kind of did that with Poshmark. It's like when you first started, it's COVID, you didn't really have money, you were in debt, and then you already were so into clothes and fashion and you knew all the prices already. You knew what everything went for. You were probably buying stuff on Poshmark before you were selling stuff, right?
No, I never bought anything.
Oh, really? Well, still, you turned your fashion experience. You worked at that boutique in the Hamptons before. So you kind of knew the ins and outs of fashion and clothing, and you turned that into a strength and did the Poshmark thing. So it was like natural, right? Instead of trying to learn something completely out of the ordinary, something that's out of your comfort zone, dive into something that's maybe closer to home. And I think it's easier to stick to it that way.
So what's the secret? How do you grow a successful agency in 2023?
You have to be good. You have to be good at it.
Please elaborate.
Yeah. Seriously, there's no secret sauce. There's no tactic. Like maybe back in the day, like 2016, 2017, you could outsource the work or you could find some elaborate scheme and do it, like drop arbitrage, white label. I know a lot of people talk about that. You can't do that anymore. You have to get results. And if you can get results, then you can have an agency. It doesn't matter where it is, even if it's not even online marketing. It could be anything. It could be cold email. It could be cold calling. It could be so many things. Right? You have to get results. Just like if you go and clean somebody's window, if the window is not clean, you're not going to get repeat business. It's the same thing with an agency. So the most important thing is to learn the skill and then start the agency. So like for me, having the skill made it pretty easy to have the agency because you get results and then you get social proof because people are giving you testimonials. They're saying, thank you for this, thank you for that. I made so much money. I got so many followers, X, Y, and Z. You can then flip that into case studies and social proof, which you post online and then get more clients. And it's like an endless flywheel. So it all starts with getting results. So learning a high income skill and then turning that into an agency. And you could just be a freelancer and make great money. You can make 6 figures as a freelancer. Be a high paid freelancer, or you could take it a step further and start an agency and have a team like me.
Let's backtrack a little bit because you said you have to be good. But what I noticed is that you said, I learned a skill before I grew my agency. And I think a lot of what we see online and even a lot of people who try to join my programs and be a part of, my course, they want to fast forward to having the successful agency, having the successful business without the skill. So can you talk about how you learned the skill of ghostwriting before you started your marketing agency for Twitter?
Yeah, well, a lot of people want to jump in, right, and charge a bunch of money right off the rip. But the reality is, especially as the landscape gets more competitive, I was pretty lucky. I started in a pretty unsaturated market, and that was only a year ago. But even then, I had started on Upwork and I had I'll call it humility, I guess, because I was making money before I started my agency, right? Like I had gotten some good success in Facebook dropshipping. I had some good success in crypto and trading. But even in this skill, I started on Upwork and I was doing $10, $25, $50 blogs, ebooks, etc. off of Upwork. And then I landed my first client on Upwork for 1,000 LinkedIn ghostwriting. It was like LinkedIn posts, blogs, ebooks, etc. I took that, went on Twitter. It kind of all fell into place. I was actually learning copywriting, which I then extrapolated into ghostwriting. I learned Twitter ghostwriting, which like I said, I had been on Twitter since 2011. I got on like 7th or 8th grade. So I knew the platform really well. And then when Elon Musk bought it, it kind of made sense. Because like advice that I got from Ty Lopez back in maybe like 2018 is that if you can combine two trends, you are going to be in a great place to grow a business. So for me, those two trends, the one trend was education. So I only work with education, coaching businesses, consulting businesses, et cetera. And then the other trend, at the time, it was nothing. But once Twitter was bought by Elon Musk, you kind of put two and two together. If Elon Musk is buying it, it's probably going to do really well. At the time, the masses were saying like it's not going to do well. But when you look at his track record and you kind of think of the publicity around it, it's like it's going to do really well. Maybe businesses are going to be rushing to come onto Twitter because Elon Musk bought it. And that's what ended up happening. So combine those two trends. And I actually got free trials on Twitter ghostwriting. So I don't know if you remember this. I had 2 or 3 free trials. I was doing cold DMs a lot. Like I was sending like maybe 50 cold DMs a day. And I had landed some free trials with all sorts of businesses. They didn't turn out too well, but I did get good testimonials out of them, like screenshots, social proof that I could post on the timeline. And that led to my first 1K a month client, which then led to my first 3K a month client and so on. And then kind of built it up that way and then just hired people. And now I have a team. Kind of skipped to the end there. I forgot the original question.
Fast forward a bit. So the next question we have is, does he ever help you with your business? And would you ever go into business together? Twofold question.
I don't know. Do I?
Are you asking me to answer?
Of course I'm asking you to answer.
I thought I was the interviewer.
This isn't an interview. This is a podcast.
I think you do help me indirectly. Like, I don't think you are like sitting and writing my captions or anything like that, but you'll review my work, or if I have a question, I am bugging you to write me a nice Twitter thread to put on my feed because you haven't yet. But I think you help me in more ways than you know because you have a different approach to business. I think you have a more masculine perspective. And sometimes when I'm too emotional and like too watery, then you can really bring me back and ground me and make a more grounded decision. I also think that you have more of a 30,000 foot view than I do, which is something that we talk about a lot, is that you're more of a visionary and I'm more of an executor. And sometimes they can be either a strength or a weakness. So that's why I think you help me.
Well, I guess there's 2 points to it. It's like from a broad view, yes, we help each other all the time. You know, we always talk about our businesses and success and mindset and all sorts of things. And just like every other entrepreneur, we go through our shit. So we're always helping each other in that way. I think from a more practical perspective, I work with, 10 different coaching, consulting, info businesses that are all the same industry as you, coaching businesses, info businesses, course creators, educators, etc. So I kind of have that perspective that I work on 10 of the businesses. So I have a lot of expertise that could be applied to you. And then vice versa. Like even the other day, I asked you if you could send me a copy of your onboarding, right? So then I could then use that for a client. So I would say it's helped accelerate both of our success a lot, being able to have twice as much brain power in the same industry, even with even with coaching programs that we invest in. Like I've invested 20 grand plus into coaching coaching programs and mentors and all sorts of things, and you as well. And we get those answers. So we never invest in the same ones. We invest in different ones. So we actually get twice as much information, twice as much education, and then in turn, twice as much experience. So I think it's a win.